Alright, let's take a look at the next problem. Consider the graph of y minus 5 equals 1/5 of x plus 2. So, it wants us to determine whether each of the following statements is true or false. The first is asking us, is the slope of this graph 1/5? Does the graph include the point 0, 2? And lastly, the graph includes the point 2, -5. This question is testing our knowledge of the different types of ways we can see equations. And if you look closely, you might notice that this equation is in point-slope form. Point-slope form being that y minus y1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Just a different way to write slope form. Only here we have a y sub 1 and here we have an x sub 1. Now, let's check a few things. First, is 1/5 the slope? Is 1/5 m? Well, actually, yes, that's really easy. This is true. The slope is 1/5. Is 0, 2 a point? Now, there's a few different ways we can figure this out. We're going to go with the old-fashioned method. I know that this problem says consider the graph of this equation, and we could graph it and we could determine whether or not 0, 2 is on the line. But for this problem, let's solve it using substitution. Let's substitute 0 in for x and 2 in for y. What do we get? Well, if y is 2 minus 5, does that equal 1/5 of x, which is 0, plus 2? Alright. If this statement turns out to be true, then this is a point on the line. If it turns out to be a false statement, then it's not. Let's start. 2 minus 5, well, that's just -3. 1/5 distributed into everything in the parentheses. 1/5 times 0, well, that's just 0. Plus 2 times 1/5 is 2 over 5. And we end up with -3 is equal to 2/5. Now, is that a true statement? No. -3 is not equal to 2/5. So 0, 2 is not a point on this line. The only way that this statement would have been true is if we ended up with both things on each side of this equation. -3 equal -3, or 4 is equal to 4, 0 is equal to 0. Since this isn't true, that doesn't work. That's not a point. Go back over here, get rid of our question mark. That doesn't work. Let's try out 2, -5. Same way, we're going to substitute in. -5 minus 5 equals 1/5 of 2 plus 2. You might look at this already and know this isn't going to work. But let's humor ourselves. -5 minus 5 is -10. Does that equal to 1/5 times, well, this is 4. Does that equal to 4/5? No. Nope. So this also does not work. It's untrue.